Seems to like to disconnect after about an hour. I'm going to go back to using my laptop shortly here, but I like to see, I'm still playing with things. So this is from JSTOR Daily. We are talking about how in pop culture you see the common concept of tulpas, or thought forms, egregores, being very common in the horror genre, and in, make-believe and fairy tales. And so we are reading from JSTOR Daily, and this is about tulpas. And here we go. This is part 2. I apologize that things disconnected. All I can say is that it is an imperfect science. When you have computers and people involved, human beings involved, you need to make room for error, because things like that can and will happen. I wonder if I can get in there from this. Let's see. I'm going to continue that article in just a minute. That link, we'll see if anyone gets back here from part 1. Let's see if it'll let me go back in. I doubt it, because let me edit it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and I guess I'm just going to continue on with this. Maybe, if it'll let me. One more second. I'll be right with you guys. I wanted it to be a seamless transition, but obviously that did not work. It won't even let me stop it. This is so jive. All right, we're going to continue. Where did tulpas come from? So eventually, the idea was picked up in our modern culture in an episode of Supernatural. For example, featured a spirit that turned out to be a tulpa created through the power of teenagers sharing haunted house stories on a website. A character explains what happened by describing Tibetan monks creating a creature through meditative practice. That was 20 monks, he says. Imagine what 10,000 web surfers can do. Think about that, really. Are we, in essence, creating our own realities, and are our own thoughts being weaponized against us by the media in these times? I would say yes. I would argue for yes. So the idea of a creature that can be created inadvertently by an individual or group and can rebel dangerously bears little resemblance to anything found in Tibet. So now you see that they're trying to find the source of it as well. Did it come from Tibetan culture, the Book of the Dead? Where did it originate, this idea of creating one's own reality? And again, as I explained in part 1, we see this concept in the Bible, not using the same words, but it is there. In real life, some people use similar arguments to suggest that Slenderman, created as a spooky image by Eric Knudsen for the website Something Awful in 2009, had attained corporeal form through the mental power of masses of people. Yet Milks and Laycock write, the idea of a creature that can be created inadvertently by an individual or group and can rebel dangerously bears little resemblance to anything Tibetan. The closest match is the Tulku, an advanced Buddhist practitioner who manifests in human form to teach others. The person responsible for introducing the tulpa, or thought form, to the world seems to be European traveler, the theosophist Alexander David Neal. Now, in the first part, we defined these terms. We defined tulpa, egregore, thought form, and we discovered that they are biblical Sanskrit Sufism. These concepts are talked about across the board, but they use different words and in different languages to explain them. And I would argue again that Western culture, especially since 2019, we have had our own thoughts weaponized against us. much like they weaponized the previous generations against the generations coming in, and the children against the adults. Now they have branched out and they are weaponizing our own thoughts against us. You see it in Montauk, MK Ultra, all these different things. But this concept takes all of that work that those scientists or what have you did and brings it to a culmination where they are actually having a collective group of people bring this reality into being by their thoughts. And I would argue this is the reason, the main reason, the only reason that you are seeing mainstream media push the Bible and push biblical end time events, is because they want us advocating and essentially creating our own persecution. They want to be able to say you've done it to yourselves and have it be true. So continuing on, it says she discussed this in her 1929 book Magic and Mystery in Tibet, a book influenced by Tibetan translator Kazi Dawa Samdup, who was himself reportedly a scholar of mystical traditions. If you were over at the last video and you gave it a like, if you could have liked this one too, I'd appreciate it, because they're the same thing. I just got cut off like I do. You should ask yourself why that keeps happening. David Neal described tulpas as phantoms created by magicians and claimed that she herself had made one in Tibet while using, quote, prescribed concentration of thought and other rites, end quote. I would argue that this is the big secret of the secret religions and the mystery societies, is that they protect this because they want to be creating their own reality, and they want us creating our own, and they want us creating a bad reality. And as I said in part 1, it is an anti-human, anti-life, anti-soul campaign. And so you should ask yourself who is at the root of it. It can't be anything that is compatible with human, and soulful existence. So let's continue. It says, in fact, Milkles and Laycock argue tulpas, as David Neal described them, are most similar to thought forms described by theosophist writer Annie Besant, entities that could take physical form for good or evil depending on the intent of the creator. Listen to that. However, the authors argue that it would be a mistake to call tulpas a Western creation misattributed to Tibetans. They argue that they seem to have emerged from a two-way cultural exchange between theosophists like Theosophists, like David Neal, and Tibetans like Samdup, the translator. In fact, Samdup used the term thought form in his 1927 translation, The Tibetan Book of the Dead. Thus, the tulpa may truly be a creative creature built from collective imagination. Mickles and Laycock write not only of multiple individuals, but multiple cultures exchanging ideas and terms. All right, so now we're going to move to another source. And we are going to go to Egregores. And we're going to see where they're described in the Book of Enoch real quickly. What I don't like about all of this is, if you paid any attention there, a lot of these things, a lot of these events, a lot of these concepts were culminating around the late 20s to the early 40s. You just had this 20-year span of this boom of spiritual knowledge, if you will, just like we're seeing now, where all of these things happened. And so I would also argue that you see these cyclical events take place every 100 years for whatever reason. And I don't think time is linear. It does seem to be a spiral, and each event, right, would be at a different dot. So if I go like this, and this does kind of explain something here, so give me a second. If I go like this, and we think of the events of the book of Revelation, right? And we have a dot for each event, each cyclical event, because it's cyclical and it repeats. it's the same, right? There's a pattern there, but it's not the same. So each time it's going to present a little bit different. And they tell you that things like that are used by child harmers. They don't want your spiritual mind to expand beyond abuse, torture, persecution, very low level food, very low level energies, thought energies. That's where they want you. And they want you there because they want to use your thoughts against you, against us. So that we are, in essence, creating our own reality. And in fact, I would argue that the news always lie. This is why they're called forecasters. For meaning before, casters. They're casting a spell, casting this into reality. They are telling us lies about things that have happened so that with our thoughts we create them and make them actually occur. It's nefarious, it's sinister, and I don't know what else to say other than that about it. We need to purge ourselves and our minds and cleanse our minds and renew and rejuvenate our minds on a daily basis. Read the Bible, read another spiritual text. And again, Christians, Western Christians might get mad at me for saying, read another spiritual text. We have more in common than we have different. A lot of us are explaining the same things using different ways to explain them, all right? We need to stop allowing ourselves to be manipulated. We need to grow spiritually so that we get past that type of manipulation, because that's just another form of divide and conquer. I would say that's one of the strategies to divide and conquer. And so Egregore, let's look at that a little bit since we just looked at Tulpa. Let's head back to Egregore real quick. Now it says the original meaning in the Book of Enoch, and this is where I say they became convoluted at some point. The term Egregore refers to the Watchers. These were angels who, according to the text, descended to earth to interact with humans. They later became associated with various skills and evils. The Greek word Egregoros, from which egregore is derived, meaning wakeful or one who stays awake, fitting the role of these celestial watchers. The modern usage, the modern concept, of an egregore as a thought form emerged later with figures like the occultist Eliphas Levi. I think it's Levi, actually. However, the term's root in the Book of Enoch is still acknowledged, and some esoteric writers see a connection between the original Watchers and the idea of modern egregores. So let's ask you another question then. Are they wanting us to create our own villains? Can we trust the Book of Enoch? Or are they telling us right there that we are creating the fallen ones in some type of physical form by having our minds on them? Again, this is why Christ preached, keep your mind on heavenly things. Now, how the modern concept of egregore developed. Collective mind. The modern meaning of an egregore is an entity like Slenderman or the Boogeyman, Freddy Krueger, insert any Boogeyman name. Now, this is its modern thought usage. The collective mind, the modern meaning of an egregore is an entity that arises from the shared mental and emotional energy of a group of people with a common goal or belief. Autonomous existence. Over time, this thought form can gain its own autonomy and exert a subconscious influence on its creators. I would also argue that this is where doppelgangers could arise from. And doppelgangers in Slenderman, the actual stories have roots in Germany. And again, when you dig into any rabbit hole and you actually start making headway, it seems like they all go to the same slots, like that game Plinko on The Price is Right back in the day. It's like they all end up going to the same places. So again, the origin of the term, the Greek word egregoros, meaning wakeful or watcher, was derived from that same Greek word. The initial meaning meant a type of watchers. The modern meaning is a collective thought form or group mind. the nature, the Book of Enoch, they call them celestial beings that interact with humanity. The modern concept is that they are autonomous psychic entities created by our group consciousness. The connection, the source of the term egregore, is the basis for the modern concept, though the meaning is different now. So, words matter and definitions matter just the same. Okay, this is Glossary of Spiritual and Religious Secrets. We're just gonna, this is from the website Glorian. Oddly enough, it's the Slenderman thing with the cross, the plus sign inside of a circle, which is also a Hebrew letter or caricature as well. These things are all connected. Humanity, we do share a common spirit, each one of us. I'd say we have a collective and we are individuals as well. Much like these egregores, are we the thought forms of the creator, the main creator maker? Are we all his thought forms? It's an interesting idea, isn't it? So it says in here, and again, we're digging at the meanings and definitions and these two videos, part 1 and 2 from earlier. And then in the next videos, we will get a little deeper and kind of zone in a little more on each concept. So it says, for egregore, Eliphaz Levi commits the mistake of commenting about an apocryphal document of Enoch and falsely judging the 20 egregores who descended upon Ardis, which is the top of the Mount Armon, and dogmatically condemning them by qualifying them as demons. Interesting. So we just read that Eliphaz Levi, he was one of the originators, one of the origins for this word, with a translation that he made. But this is interesting, and I'm going to have to save this website. But it says he falsely judged 20 egregores and called them demons. Azazel is an egregore who gave grave assistance. Okay, now remember, I'm not the one who wrote this, so, and as always, have some discrimination. Don't accept, receive, or believe any of this as truth unless, you pray on it, meditate on it, and it resonates with you, and you can scientifically, repeat the process. So it says, according to this guy, Azazel is an egregore who gave great assistance to humanity. Azazel was the king Solomon. Actually, the Bodhisattva of Azazel is fallen, but it is logical that in the close future, this Bodhisattva will rise from the clay of the earth again. All the angels of families, angels of countries, angels of tribes, etc., are egregores. We find written in this Theosophical Glossary, HPB, the following. Quote, egregores, from the Greek egregori, or watcher. Now again, one of the species of angels is called the Grigori. A different spelling here, but the root word is the same. Eliphaz Levi calls them, quote, the chiefs of the souls, who are the spirits of energy and action, whatever that may or may not mean. The Oriental occultists describe the egregores as, quote, beings whose bodies and essence is a tissue of the so-called astral light. They are the shadows, or bodhisattvas, bodhisattva, of the higher planetary spirits, whose bodies are of the essence of the higher divine light, end quote. The Book of Enoch gives the name egregores to the angels who married the daughters of Seth and who begot with them giants as children. Samael on where the Aquarian message is where that came from. And this is from the Glorian, and I am in their website. It says community videos and books. Interesting. I'm going to have to check out that website because it's very... It's very simplistic. Introduction to Gnosis, Samael on Weor. So again, you have some of the roots are a little Gnostic. I'm going to bring something else up, and then I'll probably end part 2 because there will be a 3 and a 4. There we go. Okay, now this comes right direct from the Theosophical Society themselves. And so we'll close it out with a quote-unquote credible source. Egregores, the occult entities that watch over human destiny, by Mark Stavish. This is from a book, but we're going to read this. Again, this is from the actual website. It says, it is a basic theosophical idea. Thoughts are things. Although mental images have no physical substance, they are composed of a subtle mind stuff, sometimes called the astral light. Most of them are evanescent. They have no independent life or power. But if a certain kind of energy is directed toward them, they can gain power and cause effects in the physical world. If this is true of individuals' thoughts, it must be even more true of thoughts that are held by many people or a collective. Egregore is the name for these collective thought forms. It comes from the Greek gregario, to be awake or to watch. It appears to have been coined by the French author Victor Hugo. So now we have another person brought in here. Do you see how the waters get muddied? But each person is of a different nationality. So it's spreading, right? And the more an idea spreads, the more life it's given. It appears to have been coined by the French author Victor Hugo, who uses it in the first part of his poem, La Légende des Siècles, the legend of the centuries, Siècles, published in 1859. Hugo describes one character who, quote, knows the art of evoking demons, vampires, and egregores, end quote. Ooh, I'll have to look for that book. As Mark Stavish points out in his new book, the term was popularized soon after by the occultist, here he comes, Eliphas Levi, or Eliphas Levi, who connected it with the mysterious watchers mentioned in the pseudographical text 1 Enoch. They were supposedly the sons of God, who lusted after the daughters of men, cryptically mentioned in Genesis 6:2. From Levi, the idea made its way into the French occult tradition called Martinism. See how it's moving? The thoughts are the concept is moving. But it was Russian esoteric. Now we got another nationality brought in. But it was Russian esotericism that brought the concept to the foreground. Grigory Osipovich Mebes, which is interesting, his name is Grigory, a Freemason and Martinist, is virtually unknown in the West. But he has, it's always with the Freemasons. And again, these are research with me types. I did not research this ahead of time. But if you missed part 1 and you're watching this now, please do check out part 1 because it's almost seamless. There's a few minutes there that are wonky, but please watch both parts. Don't judge by one. Okay, so this guy, Grigory, from 1861 to 1930. Again, there's that year, the end of the 30s to the mid-40s, 1945. A Freemason and Martinist, is virtually unknown in the West, but he has been extraordinarily influential through the work of 2 of his disciples, Dmitry Sadovsky, who, using the pen name Mauni Sadhu, wrote the widely read book, The Tarot, and Valentin Tomberg, author of the anonymously published but acclaimed Meditation on the Tarot. It is not quite clear how Mebes viewed egregores, but his disciples gave them a great deal of attention. Mauni Sadhu describes how they are created. And we get into that here. Imagine that an intelligent and well-disposed man who is able to concentrate is thinking about a good idea, giving it a certain form. He may then find others who have the same or similar ideas. And so a circle of men may come into being who are all thinking along the same lines, but in a different form. It is as if every one of them is repeating the drawing of a plan, placing a pencil again and again along the same contours. What did I just talk to you about? These things being cyclical and the events in time being cyclical. Patterned, similar, but not quite the same. Interesting. I just said that. Okay, so imagine that you have this intelligent, well-disposed man who is concentrating and thinking. It is as if every one of them is repeating the drawing of a plan, placing a pencil again and again along the same contours. The thing grows in strength, develops an astrosome or astral body, and becomes an egregore or collective entity. Something a lot of us may be doing with these fallen angels as of the last several years because everybody's reading those books. Many sadhu believe that there could be both good and bad egregores, but Tomberg did not. To him, egregores were always bad. Interesting. In fact, he discusses them in his chapter on the tarot trump of the devil. On the tarot trump of the devil. For Tomberg, the meaning of the devil card is, in Stavish's word, to illustrate how individuals can lose their freedom to an entity that they or others have generated, an entity that is an artificial being whose creator becomes its slave. Remind you of AI a little. As I said, everything I go over on this channel, we're building on. Does it remind you of AI? Everybody with the same ideas, feeding it a lot of the same things. Is AI real? Are we creating it now? And then we're going to say it created us and so on and so forth. The subtitle, Mountie Sadhus cites as examples nations, states, religions, and even, quote, minor human organizations, unquote. We could add political parties and sports and celebrity fandom. The subtitle speaks of, quote, occult entities that watch over human destiny, unquote. That is, egregores can be more than simple collective thought forms. They can also be, in Stavish's words, quote, the home or conduit for a specific psychic intelligence of a non-human nature connecting the invisible dimensions with the material world. They are not, end quote, they are not necessarily mere creatures of imagination. They can serve as astral vehicles by which supernatural entities can interact with us. So, for example, by creating Slenderman, did we create a vehicle for a similar entity to use and manipulate our children? Stavish gives a brief but engaging history of the concept in modern times, taking us from horror writer H.P. Lovecraft with his tales of, quote, the old ones, to the Italian esotericist Julius Evola, to the ancient and mystical order Rosicrucians, the Rosicrucians, AMORC, to Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich. An appendix from 1929, there's that year again, Italian esoteric magazine edited by Evola, very similar to Ebola. Isn't that a word being used now? Evola. I could swear I just saw it. Even describes a ritual reviving the egregore of ancient Rome around the time of World War I. Shut up. There's the golden nugget in this video. If you want to take anything away relating it to modern times, right there it is. I'm going to have to do a short on that. A ritual reviving the egregore of ancient Rome. Well, you're going to say, I thought an egregore or a thought form was only a creature. No, at the beginning, in video 1, we talked about the definitions of these words and how they had evolved over time. But one of the definitions is a collective can create a reality, a being, or what have you. You're seeing that right now. They are attempting to recreate Rome right now with all this talk of golden age, golden age, golden age, which might be fine for some people, but it's not going to be good for people who don't want to live that way. Do you see what I mean? So, right here, an appendix from a 1929 Italian esoteric magazine edited by Evola describes a ritual reviving the egregore of ancient Rome around the time of World War I. Man, if you want to take anything away from this, you take that. Go make a video about it yourself and share that little bit. A message was conveyed to a Milanese newspaper publisher saying, quote, "You will be the consult of Italy," unquote. The publisher was Benito Mussolini. After Mussolini's famous march on Rome in 1922, we are told, quote, "A person clothed in red came forward and handed him a fasces," end quote. Thus was the fasces, originally the symbol of Roman Republic. It is still displayed in the U.S. House of Representatives. I might be saying that wrong. You know how they wear the ivory around the head? I actually still have my son's. Oh, that's weird. That was used in his graduation ceremony. It never ends. Anyways, it's like, I'll remember what it's called as soon as I'm done doing the video. But that's what they're talking about. Thus was the fasces, originally the symbol of the Roman Republic, and it is still displayed in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is transposed into a symbol of what? Totalitarianism. Man, they're using our ignorance against us. They have told us all this stuff was bad because if we read it, we would have known what they were doing. And I say that all the time, but with only 20, 30 people seeing the videos. I hope that we are creating our own butterfly effect on this channel and that these ideas gain momentum and that people stop allowing their own minds, their own children, their own family, their own belief systems to be weaponized against us. We all have, it has to be a collective effort at some point. Okay, Stavish includes a useful chapter on freeing oneself from egregores, which after what I just read, they're saying there's a cure, basically. So we all need to read this and maybe be freed from what they're trying to do right now. So Stavish includes a useful chapter on freeing oneself from egregores. One technique taken from the Meditations on the Tarot involves making the sign of the cross in the 4 directions and reciting Psalm 68, 1 through 2. Quote, "Let God arise, let his enemies be scattered, let them also that hate him flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melteth before the fire, so let the wicked perish at the presence of God." End quote. You've got to do that. We've all got to do that. I'm not even kidding. If you don't like what you're seeing the media create right now through us and our own thoughts, we should all do that. I'm going to do it. I don't care. And you have to do it to the north, south, east, and west. You're supposed to pray Psalms anyway. Like, that's what you're supposed to do with them, is pray with them. And it equips you. That's why I was doing, and I'm going to get back to it now that the holiday's over, the Liturgy of the Hours. Because if you have that many people saying praying those Psalms 5 times a day, then we're all covered. We'll be protected. So it says a less august method discussed by scholar esoterist Jocelyn Godwin is, quote, "therapeutic blasphemy," end quote. Oh no. For those enslaved by degenerate forms of Christianity, Stavish writes, this might involve, quote, "a period of public denunciation of Christianity. Otherwise, they are doomed to remain perpetually under the thrall of the cult of the creed-making fishermen," end quote. So I gave you both perspectives there. But again, why are you pushing the Bible and then saying something like that? I can understand why some people would renounce like their specific religion or man-made church, but don't ever renounce the Creator. Don't ever renounce God or his Son, right? Like, I just don't do things like that. Those who find the real Christ know that he teaches you sovereignty. He teaches you that you're a little g God, that you are a sovereign being, that you have sovereignty and nobody else can make you do anything here. They can't make you do nothing. You always have a choice, always, but people don't realize that. Remixer Guy British. Well, I hope you actually are from across the pond. That would mean that my channel is getting out of my house anyways. Thanks for being here. The idea of egregores could inspire paranoia and a certain kind of personality, and of course that is unwise, but it is no doubt a good idea to remember that false idols can take the form of thoughts and ideas as well as objects. Stavish's book is a timely, intelligent, and enjoyable reminder of this truth. And now we go here. Richard Smoley, a Russian esoterist, informs me that Mount Sadhu's book is based on the Holy Book of Thoth, the Major Arcana. And it was published in Moscow in 1916. And to his knowledge, it says this work is not available in English except in automatic translations. Wow, that was kind of a treasure trove there, gang. That was a good one. I feel like I should end this video on that good note. I think I will, because if you missed the last 10 minutes, go back, and it tells you probably a really good prayer that we should all be doing at this time. Let's say this. Let's suppose, what if we did create some of these things and we didn't know it? We created them through our own ignorance and other people manipulating our thoughts and words and weaponizing our own mind against ourselves. And how much, I haven't seen Stranger Things in like 2 seasons. How much you want to bet that's what this current season, this new season, is going to be about? I just have that feeling. You don't have to listen to me, but I think that's what it's going to be about, because that's how my research always goes. It is a good idea if we created these things, hypothetically speaking, if we did that, if we fed something through ignorance and we didn't even know we were doing it. Don't you think it'd be a good idea then to say a specific prayer and go through it and you know, make sure that it's not going to affect you anymore? And all you're doing is saying a psalm in 4 different directions. I think I'm going to do it, just so I know what's going on, because I will tell you this on a final note. If you're a targeted individual, your thoughts are always being weaponized against you, always. You need to learn how to control them. You need to learn the Force, Luke. If you're a TI, a targeted individual, you're facing extreme spiritual warfare, you need to learn how to do this, because I guarantee you your thoughts are being used against you every day, whether it's by demons, lower-leveled sentient energies, other people, the media. Learn how to be media literate and learn how to have control over your own mind. Be the master of your own domain. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Y'all have a blessed day. I'm going to go see how many inches it snowed while I was doing this video. Pray for a miracle for me this Christmas, and I'll pray for one for you as well. Bye, guys. Have a blessed day.